welcome to the Oktoberfest session for today. My name is Björn. I'm SAP mentor in the SAP community, and today I want to speak about the use of IDE actions, how you can develop them, how you can use them to improve your efficiency in your daily work for this day. So the agenda is about an introduction. When are the IDE actions available? Which APIs you can use for this? We want to build. I show something I have built before, so we can go step by step through different steps of an IDE action, how they are working together. And at the end, I will have some more examples for the case of RAP development. So I will show some of the IDE actions that will improve your life to build faster RAP object, but also to analyze them faster, to navigate faster, so you can improve the engineering quality in this time. And at the end, we'll do a little summary on this topic, so to say what's next for us. So to get into the details of the session, so when we talk about extending our ABAP development tools, I had set this date 2022, but it's also 2024, where we have the problem. When we want to enhance our IDE, we have to do it in Java. So not everyone from us is a Java developer, so we do not have the necessary skills to extend our IDE, not the way we could extend it, for example, in the SEAT. So we, as an ABAP developer, have the possibilities there, but in ADT, it's not so easy this way. So in 2025, at the beginning of this year, there was the introduction of the IDE actions, now a new way for us as ABAP developers to enhance our IDE in this case. So it's the possibility to do it without Java, to do it natively in ABAP, and then the ADT runtime is rendering the rest for us. So we only have to focus on implementing our IDE action in ABAP, so we can extend our IDE for this. And also an important date is 2026, because now it's the release of S/4HANA 2025 is available. You can install it, you can use it now. So in 2026, more and more companies will also upgrade their systems on the new version. It's relevant for on-premise and also private cloud systems. So at the moment, you can use it mainly in the public cloud or in the ABAP environment. So I'm showing today a demo from the ABAP environment, but at the next year, you will also can handle this and can develop your IDE actions on-premise. So to say, when we talk about APIs, I'm always in the focus of ABAP Cloud. So ABAP Cloud is the model for clean core extensibility. So I'm always watching not on the standard ABAP way. I'm not searching all the APIs that are available in the systems. So I'm searching the ABAP Cloud released APIs. There are some objects in the main 6607 from the screenshot. It's from the ABAP environment, released APIs we can use. When we focus on them, we can say we have the Xcode libraries, for example, when we want to interact with the system, when we want to analyze objects, when we want to create objects, we have the Xcode libraries for this. We have the core data service for anything we want to have information. When we want to read objects, when we want to read data, also functional data, we can use the core data services that are released in this case. And we have also to point out of the ISLM services, Intelligent Service Lifecycle Management, everything about AI in this case. So when you want to also build AI features, you want to access the AI core, you have the ISLM in the system, where you have the possibility to also build actions that rely on AI later. And so to say, you have also everything around web and HTTP and REST services available. So you can use any BTP service, and you can also use any web API that's available for you. So that are the main APIs we can use to extend our life a little bit better. And many more you can also imagine about. So when we're talking about how to build IDE actions, there are some things we should mention before we get into this. You need there's special authorizations on the system. So there's a new business catalog in this case. You need this business catalog to develop IDE actions because there is I think, a downside in this case, because an IDE action that you have developed on the system is available for every developer on the system. So every developer sees your action, can execute your action. And so you should know what you do when you implement such an IDE action on the system. So that's the first thing you should know about. So not everyone should build IDE actions, else you will have so many different actions and you don't know which one is working now on the system. So you have to focus on what you want to build on the system. That's the focus. And when you're searching for some of the examples in your system, there is a new type, SAIA. You'll find IDE actions that are always also developed on the systems, but you also will find all the demos SAP is delivering. So you can also check the demos out. You will find a package, a demo package, where you also find demo app IDE actions. You can look how you can model, for example, the UI. What is the IDE action is doing? What is the output for this IDE actions? So there are many possibilities before you start developing to find any information about it. There's also a good documentation where some scenarios are described how you can use IDE actions for this. So to say, let's start right into the demo for this. I have prepared IDE action for this. And we can look how this IDE action is working, also how this IDE action is built in the system. So the first thing we start is the IDE action. It's a new object that has been created. The object has a title and a summary. The title is this, what you see when you start the action. So you can filter, for example, with a title, and then you have a summary where you can explain, for example, what is the IDE action doing in this case. And I think the most important part for the integration is the implementing class and also the input. The implementing class is this class. It's executed at the end when you have done your input, then the execution is running, then it's running in the action class. And when you want to have an UI, that's not a must-have. You don't need an UI when you want to input something. You have also the possibility for the second class, where you can then show the user an input dialog. And in the input dialog, you can give certain information for you, and you can use this information in your IDE action to do something. So the main part for implementing the IDE action is the action part. The input part is optional in this case. Second part is when do an IDE action trigger. So when you imagine you have now 30 IDE actions in your system, so you need a filter for this. For example, when you are in a class, you want to see all the IDE actions that are relevant for a class. When you want to be in the source code, there should be actions relevant for your source code. So you can define additional filter criteria. For example, the number of resources. In this case, the demo action is for one resource. This means when we have one object open, the action is filtered for us, so we see the action then. And we have also the possibility to say at least one object. This could be zero object, at least one object or more objects, or we need at least two objects, for example, when we want to compare something. So when we want to compare two classes with each other, we need two objects. And so we set at least two objects. Or if it's not relevant, we can also set any object. So any objects are active. Then we have another filter. In this case, the class filter. So I say that my IDE action is only available in a class. So there must be one class and it should be active. And then my IDE action is visible in this case. So we can test it relatively easily. In this case, I click, for example, on a package. So I have one focused object now, one focused package, and I can run the IDE action under run. There you'll find run ABAP IDE action. I'm running the action. Now I see some actions, but not my action. So my action is the Devtoberfest action. I see an inspect action. I see some demo actions, and I see an action I have developed in this case. So at the moment, I don't see the action that's only filtering on classes. but I can, for example, start this class. This is a demo class. And now I can also run the IDE action. Now I see more or other actions in this case, and I see also the Devtoberfest action. So that's the filtering for. So the filtering always says, okay, you have some objects, you have how many objects you have active, for example, and so you get an information about what IDE action you can use there. So this is for in this case. So before we can see anything, we should implement the input. So we don't want to execute the action directly. We want to first see anything to get some informations. So we build the input, and the input is also a class implementation. When we go a little bit down, we see the create input config. The input config is for the reason that we say this is our structure, this is for the input, and we can also define some elements there. So at this moment, we let this, I explain this later. I have one input structure. In this case, the input structure had an output format field, a core data service field, custom field, input and output field. So there are at the moment 5 fields that are visible in this IDE action. And when we go up, we have also some more information that are relevant. For example, in this case, we have an output format. So we want to output something. This output format has a type, an assign type. This assign type has also some cryptic values here. So some of you will know this as ABAP docs, but it's also enriched ABAP docs because we have also some information about values. For example, what is the default value? And this one is pointing to this type here. So this type says we have an enumeration type for text, HTML, and code. This one is set as value on this field, and we have also a default value, and the default value is pointing to text. So this is something to configure your output before. And so I will show it now. I will execute the IDE action on the system. So we can see the input. We say the input from the IDE action. These are the 5 fields I have defined. And I also see now that there is a drop-down now with the text, HTML, and code. And the initial value is text for this. So that's the possibility now. I can configure, for example, the drop-down here and can show the user the drop-down. So you have the possibility to choose some values. And for example, if we now have the plain text and we say run, for example, we get a plain text output, or in this case, a text output. And here is only displayed some text in this case. So that's one output, for example. But to go back to the input first. So we have also a core data service field. And when we have a core data service field, we normally want to provide the user an input or a value head, for example, so that the user can search for core data services in the system. So that's a little bit easier. When we have created the input configuration, we can take this configuration element and then take the element core data service, for example, and set the types for this. Set the types means we define here a value head, in this case for core data services, DDLS. And here's also a second element where we set values. In this case, we set specific values. This is a so-called user exit, for example, where we then define different values that we want to show when the user is clicking on the output. So we can also call this action from here. So to see it a little bit better. So we have a core data service field. We have a browse button here. When we click on the browse button, for example, we can search then for core data services in the system. So it's defining, we're searching core data services and can input something and it will generate a proposal for me. It's also working on, in this case, I can also click here using the content assist and I got also the value help where I can choose, for example, a core data service. Then we have a custom search help. Here we will find some values in there. So we have also the possibility to build ourselves a value help. That's a little bit different because we have defined, in this case, a value help on the custom field. But now we have also to provide the system a standard implementation for this. So in this case, we have here the get value provider field. And in the method, in the get value provider method, we create an instance of our value class. So the value class is a class with an implementation of an interface. The interface is defined from SAP. So we get a method get value help items, and here we can do what we want to do. We can also call the input from the value help and get some information from the value help there, and then define our items we want to return back to the user. So in this case, here is hard-coded 3 lines with a key and a description in this case. And when I'm calling again the IDE action and going on the browse button, here we see also these 3 entries that we have hard-coded in this case in the value help, but we can use it to give the user a custom value help. It's also working with the content assist, so we also get the help for the value help in this case. So that's for giving the user the possibility to input something into the IDE action, but also the possibility to guide them through the workflow. I think one thing I should show is something like, for example, side effects. Someone of you will know it from the RAP development. Side effects are the possibility to refresh something on the UI without refreshing the UI itself. So it's doing it automatically. In this case, we've also defined a side effect on the input field. So it's meaning after input. So it means when we are typing in the field, we stop typing, and then a half second later, then the UI is refreshing automatically. And we set the output field to the read only because we do some input, and the output should reflect the input after an amount of time. When we've defined the effect, we also need another class for this. So we have also a side effect class, in this case, this class here for the implementation. And we are not doing so much in the class. We are only checking if we are in the after update, so to say, if the right event is called. Then we get from the model our input. So everything that's actually in the pop-up from the user. And then we are counting the signs that are in the input field. So to say, we have a counter that counts our signs that we include in the input. And when we then execute the action, for example, in this case, you see that it's actually waiting until I have stopped, or if I'm typing too slow. And then it's counting the numbers on the pop-up. So that is then for the pop-up part. And then we have also the part for the output. So I've shown you the text output at the moment. So when we start the IDE action, we use the plain text and run it. We say a plain text. So this is for something when, for example, AI gives us a result with much more text. We can include the text here. But we can also include when we have some error messages during execution, for example. So this is possible as text output. We have also the possibility to do HTML. So when we do HTML, we can include everything we want in the output. In this case, I've created an HTML table. The table has 3 same entries with a different index. But you can also include links, for example. In this case, I have a link that's pointing to an interface that's also in the package there. And when I click on the link, I'm navigating directly to the object. So it's also possible, for example, in the HTML output to create links, and the links show to other objects so I can navigate to these objects. Later, we will also use this. in our demo for RAP development. And the last change I will show you is the code change. So you have something to output, but in the most cases, you will, for example, change something in code. And before you change it, you want to see what's changing. So in this case, for example, I mark the source code. I'm calling the IDE action now. And then I'm triggering a code change. And now I get a code change result. So to say, I see what the system is doing now. I have marked, on this side, I've marked this method. It's a released method from the utility framework, but I want to automatically replace it, for example, through the escape function from ABAP. So that's the way to go. We want to change this in the escape functions, and I have triggered it through the IDE action. Now I can see the result, what the system is now doing for me. So when I say yes, that's okay, what it's doing, then it will do the change, else it will cancel the change also. If you're not satisfied with what you see, then you can also cancel it. In this case, I finish, and when I finished, I see now it changed the call of the method to the function, and we are now finished. So that is also a possibility of the IDE action to show you the code change result. I will go back. So we have the class in place. So I'm activating. So that's a rough overview of what you can do with the IDE actions. You can define the IDE action. You can also set an input. The input can be designed as you need it with inputs field, value helps, and also with different outputs you need. And then you can implement it, use it, test it. So that's the idea of IDE actions. I will close this as the beginning. Go back. Oops, this one is now still open. Going back to the presentation, but not for long because I've brought some examples with me today. Some of the examples with RAP development I have developed the last weeks. There are some examples I want to show today that should provide a better or faster development experience when you are working with RAP together. And so I will show them together also in the system. What I've prepared before this, I have prepared some demo scenarios here. The RAP examples. In this case, I have a business configuration, for example. I have something built on custom entities, and I have also built a deep RAP object, but it's more about having so many entities in one RAP object in this case. So I want to show also the application in this case. We have a simple Fiori elements application. This is the deep application where we have many nodes under. We have to refresh UI. We are locked out from the system. So refreshing the UI. And we see a standard Fiori UI. I can also navigate on a company position. So we see companies, different companies. We see in the details then some employees that are working in the company. We see some vehicles. We see some investments that are done in the company. So that is a company Fiori elements. But we see some things we want to change later. So we see, for example, in this case here in the investment part, there's a condition 3 zeros. So we want to change this later because this looks not so fine. And for example, we have a value help here. The value help is at the moment not working. So there's no value help behind this for the company name. And we want to extend also this value help where we see some values, but we want to add another one, for example, for the filter. So that's the idea of what we want to change in this application. And then we're using the IDE actions to help to improve our development speed in this case. So the first thing I want to show is the RAP analyzer. The RAP analyzer is for analyzing your RAP stack and give you a visual overview of your object. So we have now the object that is very deep, nearly deep, I think 3 3 stages deep, and we have also some entities in there. And I'm calling the analyze RAP object IDE action. It's now analyzing the RAP stack for you, and then we will see the result of the RAP object. Could take a little bit because we're using the Xcode classes and have to go through the whole stack of the RAP object to get an overview for this. So what's the result we see? We see something of, that's the name of the RAP object. It's also a classification included. So we know it's a classic pattern here included. So we have our own tables. We have a classic RAP stack on there. And we have also the analysis here. So what we see the package level, service level, we gone from the service to the database in this case. We see also the consumption level, and we see the levels that are nesting on each other. So the company on top, we have the employees, the documents under the employees, and so on. So we have the full structure of the RAP object. We have also the interface layer. We have the behavior in this case, and we have also metadata extensions where we have our UI annotations, for example. And we can go down until to the database level and also to the domain level. So that's the idea of this action. The action is analyzing the full RAP stack for you, and you can then quick navigate through the full stack without navigating through the tree on the side. It should be much faster to navigate. You should also get to the right place where you want. So I want to show this also for this object. This is a custom entity object. So we have here some custom entities stacked on each other, so to say, for a remote scenario, or for example, when you want to reuse your development. We see here a custom pattern. The custom pattern is always saying it, so we have normally no consumption level in this case. We have no metadata because the metadata is then in the custom entity included. We have the stack from the custom entity, and we have, for example, also a fixed value domain. And we see the behavior. We can also, when we click here, we can navigate to the behavior of this object. So that's possible. That's the analyzer. And I think one last example is for a business configuration. In this case, the business configuration is using a pattern so-called singleton. And we can also analyze the singleton pattern. The difference is normally to a normal pattern that we have a dummy level in this case. So we have the dummy level on top, where we have a hard-coded value, and then it's saving, for example, the transport request. And then we have the entities we want to maintain there. So that's the RAP analyzer. It's analyzing your RAP objects in this case. So we close this. The idea is we want to extend our RAP application. We start the RAP analyzer again because we wanted to adjust the value help. We saw a value help on the level of on the top level for the status. We wanted to extend it, and as we see it, it could be, for example, a fixed value domain. So that's the point here on the top, on the downside. We see here some fixed value domains. We can navigate to the domain in this case, and we see here are the fixed values for this. So we haven't to navigate through the whole stack to get to the status entity. We can directly navigate here, and for example, can also add now a new value we want to display in the value help. So this should improve your development flow a little bit more, so you can directly jump to what you want to adjust in this case. The pop-up still remains open as long as until you close it. So this is a good point. With a second screen, you can put it there, so you can also work from there. We had also on the investment side in the metadata extension, we saw a label with the 3 zeros. You can also navigate there, and we will find the condition there. So we can directly maintain it. In this case, 3 labels. then also activate it and change it in this case. And then we have a third value help. The third value help is more for another recommendation. We want to read a remote source in this case. So we go back to the app. We have here the company code name. The company code name is a remote service in this case. So we want to include a remote service, in this case, a consumption model. So we want to call the consumption model, get the values from the consumption model, and then use it as a value help in our class. So when we think about, oh, I put it a little bit to the side. So we think about a consumption model. The consumption model is normally loading the an OData service in this case. So we have an OData service, on-prem OData service we want to consume in our application. So at the moment, the service consumption model with version 2 only generates as a model class in the system. So we have the model class here. And in the model class, we will find all the types that are included. So we have here also some account types, for example. We have a description for this. We have the addresses. And we have also the company type. Because we want to use the value help for the company names. So we have also an included type here for this purpose. So what the next step we have to do is to create a custom entity. The custom entity then needs the structure as reference. And in the custom entity, we can develop then the access to the on-prem system. So that's the idea, to use it as value help in our data model. So I've prepared the value help custom entity before. We have the custom entity now. We have an implementation that's also calling the entity, and it's doing something. We have a dummy field. The dummy field we want to replace now. And the next thing is we have our implementation here, and we have the custom entity. But in this case, we can't transfer it one by one. So there's also now an IDE action that should provide the possibility to be faster. It's the consumption model fields generator in this case. So we can say we have a class name. In this case, we have the Rex class. Oh, not this one. And we are searching for the consumption model class. This is the class that has the type for us. We can also browse now. It's searching through the types. So we get all the types that are included in the class. So we use the Xcode library to analyze the class and say, okay, these are the types in the class. Let's take the company code type. Say, okay, I want to have this. And now we are running. So we get a code change now. We want to change code. It's proposing us some informations. We want to format it. So we have now the full implementation of the class. We have taken the type from the class. We have also the labels in there. We have the field names in there. We have the types in there, and also the key information. And we'll look back. We have here, for example, there are the different names, company code names, and so on. We have the type of the fields. We have the type from the fields, and we have also something like the key properties. So the IDE action is analyzing these types for you, and then is preparing the code snippets. So we have the fully implemented type now for this consumption model. We can activate it. So it's now loading, and we are going to bind. To bind it to the, not the metadata, sorry. I have to go to the consumption level. I wanted to go there. And on consumption level, now I have to include the value help. So I'm a more or less lazy developer. So I have also an IDE action. Oops. So normally you can remember when you're including such code snippets. But there's also an IDE action. In this IDE action, I can choose then, for example, I want to have a value help definition. I want to have it for my defined value help. I've defined the view. So I can search also for the view of the company code, and we can also browse now the fields that are available in the core data service. So we see here's the company code, the key, but in this case, we want to filter on the company code name. So we choose the company code name, and then we run it. We see also a code change here. We can finish this, and okay, that's normally something you can remember to include two fields, and then you are finished, but it's also helping you with the value help, also analyzing the object. You can choose between the fields and then have the value help included. So that's what it's doing for you. So we're activating at the moment the object, so we can check later the result in the UI application. We go back, refresh one time the application. It's now running the refresh. Could take a little bit time until it's finished. Nearly there. So can click go. Nothing changed at this moment. We have the value help. So we have now the new close entry we can choose. We have now a value help. So when you're clicking on the value help, we get now the value help for this. So we can choose, for example, the company names here, Golden Peach and October. We get one company because the other one is not available here in the system. So this is also working fine. We have included our value help. We can also navigate to the entity and check now the label. The condition label is now correct in this application, so we can use it directly. So that's the use case to help and provide us some more informations. So a little one, I don't think I can go through the full scenario, but I can show you another one that's based on the RAP analyzer, because the RAP analyzer was the first step to analyze the RAP object to know what's in the object. But there is also an extension assistant. So that's the next idea, is to have an extension assistant where I want to have an assistant that's saying me what I have to do where and what. So in this case, there is one scenario at the moment. I want to add a new field in the model. So and I can browse in which entity it's searching the RAP object and say, okay, you have this entities in the object on one level. So choose on which level you want to enhance something. So when I take the employee is one level below the company. We choose this one. We want to have a new field. You can give the field a name, in this case, home location, because we want to add the home location for the employee, so we know where the employee is living. And then we run the IDE action. So the IDE action is now analyzing also the RAP object, and then we get a proposal for what we can change in this case. We have to let it run. So we get now the assistant is now saying us some steps we should do in the system. We have a step number. We have some options here. For example, there are some optional steps at the moment I can't see in the system. We have some steps where you can choose, for example, which annotation you want to add. We have also some mass activation steps. And you have also some code examples. So I can tell, I know I want to add home location. So now it's saying you have to navigate into the table. I have to open the table. In this case, I can take this code snippet here, copy it into the table and so on, and then I can adjust every object that the assistant is proposing me. So the next step, for example, will be the entity on the root level, and then the entity on the consumption level in this case, where I can extend it. I get also every time a proposal for this, then I have to activate it. And when I'm finished with activation, I have to go to the behavior definition. And when I'm going to the behavior definition, then I have also to recreate a draft table, for example. This step is marked as optional because actually the API from the Xcode library has not the possibility to say if it has a draft or not. So I can't see it at the moment. Maybe there are some other things I can analyze later, but at the moment I can't see it directly. So it's only an optional step to recreate also the draft instance, then to add the annotations, and at the end also to activate all the objects. So this assistant should provide you a guidance where you have to enhance which feature, and you also get, with the links, you get the possibility to navigate really fast to the different objects and to include the code there. So that's the idea of the RUP assistant. Okay, so to say, this was the last action I wanted to show. There is a new class, is my beloved action, but I will show it not this today. I will show it in the session later also. So to the summary, what we've seen now. We have seen IDE actions, how to develop IDE actions. We have seen the actions in action, so to say, how we can use them in our day-to-day life and how they will improve our development flow. And at the end, we could say the availability, for example, they are actually available in the public cloud system on the ABAP environment, so you can play around with them. You can develop your first IDE actions, and they will be available in S/4HANA 2025, this or next year wherever your upgrade is on your system. Also to mention, we are in an ABAP Cloud scenario, so ABAP Cloud has released APIs. In this released APIs, you will find Xcode library, for example, so the main foundation for the technical enhancement of the objects. And everything what you want to do with APIs, you have the possibility to call BTP APIs, you have the possibility to call REST or web APIs wherever you need them. So you have many possibilities to use IDE actions to improve your life, make it a little bit easier. And at the end, you only need a little bit creativity for tasks that you're doing over and over. You want to improve, you want to be faster in this task. So use your creativity to build some cool IDE actions to improve your life every day a little bit more. So at the end, here's also a collection of links. You will find the official SAP help documentation for working with IDE actions. You will also find an article about my first IDE action I wrote for this. Also the GitHub projects, all the IDE action I've shown today are open source. You can use them freely at the actual release level. And I've also linked the ABAP environment roundtable, where also the session is linked from Una, where he's shown the IDE action the first time in action there. So to say, thank you from my side that you'll be in the session here, and also my LinkedIn profile if you want to have more questions or if you want to know more things. I think when you're talking about blogs, the next blogs will be about IDE actions. So there will be more insights on how to develop IDE actions and what to think about it. Thank you for this. And I think now we can go over to the Q&A part.
Yes, so we have a question. The first one is, are the values help context dependent? Can we use the value of input field 1 to filter results of the value help of the field 2? That's one of the questions that we got from the chat while you were doing the demo.
Yes, exactly. Yes, it is possible because I showed it in the, I think it was the demo from the consumption model with the value help. So I've first selected the core data service and then took the core data service for the next value help, then also showing only the fields from this core data service. So you can stack value helps on each other. And when you give it a order, you can then use it step by step to filter values.
And then we have another question. It says, in your company, what's the most used IDE action and brought the most value?
Good to say the most IDE actions typically I'm using because I'm mainly developing in the cloud area. But I think the most action we have used so far was the create class IDE action. This is an action that's generating the normal classes for you, a class, an interface, and factory and injector. So when you're developing in a modern OO context, you have to create every time these objects. And this has the most impact because you can start directly with integrating your code in the class because it generates all the artifacts for you. So that's the most thing where you can save time. It's when it's generating something for you that you have to maintain every time, for example, like in this case, interface class factory injector. When you're working like that, you always will need this object and this will help you to improve your quality.
I think those are the only two questions I see in the chat.
Okay. So thank you for having me and thank you for the session. And okay, so I think we are finished now.